look at it from like a third person view, it's basically a person thinking that he's talking to another person. But there is no communication when one person talks to another person and another person talks back or communicates back, right? But if this omnipotent being does not respond back, how do you know if it exists?
Okay, that gets back to the question of why I believe God exists, which is a very important question. I don't believe God exists because he's answered my prayers. Okay? I believe that God exists because the order and the design of the cosmos points to a designer. I believe that God exists because everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe has a beginning, therefore the universe has to have a cause. I believe that God exists because the anthropic principle, life is balanced on a razor's edge. To try and argue that all this just happened by chance is absurd for me. I believe that God exists because the amount of information in the DNA of a single cell is so densely packed, it demands an intelligent mind. I believe that God exists because it's more reasonable to believe that life comes from life than it is to believe that life comes from non-life. I believe that God exists because I notice that human beings have this innate drive for meaning in life. The only way there can be real meaning in life is if God created us for a purpose. And this innate drive that I notice that we human beings have for meaning is best explained by the fact that we were created for a purpose. I believe that God exists because the evidence of a conscience that ties me into moral absolutes demands a moral lawgiver. I believe that God exists because I experience love. And if there is no God, love is simply a biochemical reaction. I'm sorry, my experience of reality is there's more to love than simply a biochemical reaction. I believe that God exists because I experience free will. And free will shows me that there's more to you and me than just a machine. We're human beings with a free will. That demands there be a God, a personal being, who creates us and gives us this free will. I believe that there's a God because I notice that all human beings, myself included, have a drive for life after death. The only way there can be life after death is if there is some type of God who's able to give us this life after death. So those are 10 pieces of evidence that point to God's existence. That's why I believe God exists, for those 10 reasons.
What I'm hearing from you is more that there are certain points in your debate, in your you say answers that are incorrect. And so trying to correct them, I come up here to ask you more questions to get better answers.
Good. So you're a fellow searcher after truth. You're convinced that much of what I'm saying is false. And so therefore you want to challenge me to think more clearly. I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. Now, do you think that anything that I've said about why I believe in God, the evidence for the existence of God, makes any sense to you?
Yeah, of course.
Well, good. Makes some sense.
For, like creationism and intelligent design, I do believe in that. However, just having that pointing toward a certain God that's already known, like a Christian God, I don't believe. I do believe that there is intelligent being, but I do not believe that it's God.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, then, who's the intelligent being you believe created this world?
That's what we're searching for.
Okay, so you're just an intelligent being. Forget about Christ, forget about God. Okay. If Jesus rose from the dead, don't you think that points to him being a credible source of information about this intelligent being?
That's two different topics. We're talking about how there's an intelligent being who creates something, and then you're bringing up somebody who rose from the dead. Those are two different topics.
All right, well, obviously Jesus claimed to be this intelligent being who created. Okay, now obviously we're not just going to blindly believe it. So, does not the historical resurrection of Christ give him credibility when he claims to be this intelligent being who created the universe?
You say there is a guy, Jesus Christ, who rose from the dead several thousand years ago, and you just expect people to believe in that because people in a book said that it happened? See, that's what I don't understand. Because our day and age, most humans need to have physical evidence to believe in something. And reading a book, just having blind faith does not work for everyone. So that's why when you have saying Jesus rose from the dead, so that proves that he is a God that created everything. It does not work for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sir, I think you'd be a fool to have blind faith. So I'm right with you. Blind faith is not good. That's the way to get ripped off in life, to have blind faith. So I'm not saying put your faith in Christ blindly. I'm not saying accept the Bible blindly and just say, I believe, whatever it says. But instead, you better be open to the possibility of historical knowledge. Historical knowledge is not based on the repeatability of an experiment. Historical knowledge is based on the trustworthiness of eyewitness testimony. You better come up with some tests that you use to determine whether a document is historically reliable or not. For myself, I've got 4: internal consistency, literary style, archaeological evidence, and manuscript evidence. And the New Testament, sir, passes those tests with flying colors. You come up with your test that you use to determine historical reliability. Put the New Testament through those tests, and I'm convinced it's going to come off with flying colors.
They do.
Good.
I know they do.
Great. So then simply read the Gospels as history and ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Christ being the type of person I can trust or not? It's that simple. It's not blind faith. I trust Jesus Christ because the historical evidence is he lived a sinless life, he taught amazing ethical teachings, he died forgiving his enemies, and he rose from the dead. You graduate from here and you have some intellectual power. Now the question is, how are you going to use it? You're going to use it to figure a way to slaughter people more effectively? Or are you going to use it to just make money for yourself? Or are you going to use it to really try and help people? You decide what you're going to do with the power that you have.
Okay, can't it just be the power that I generate and not something that somebody gives me, though?
Great point.
Because, I mean, the reason that I can do all these things is because of laws of the United States and not of somebody telling me what I can do.
Okay, good. But the question is, where does that incredible gift of a rational mind come from? See, one of the reasons that I believe in God is because I think through what is more reasonable. To believe that this rational mind comes from the non-rational, the irrational, or is it more reasonable to believe that my rational mind comes from an incredibly intelligent mind? And so that's a no-brainer for me. I see no evidence that the rational comes from the non-rational or the irrational. I see tons of evidence that the rational comes from the rational. So a person who's an atheist is saying, I believe in a miracle. And the miracle that I believe in is the rational comes from the non-rational. The only problem is the atheist doesn't have a miracle worker to pull that miracle off. See, I as a theist, as someone who believes in a rational God, am saying, you know why you and I have rational minds? Because there's a rational creator who creates us and gives us the ability to think rationally. And that is why it's appropriate for me to thank God for the rational mind that he's given me. Does that make any sense?
No, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What if I believe that I am rational because I've seen other people be irrational? Like learning from somebody's mistakes, kind of.
You bet. Great point. You can at times learn from other people's mistakes. You know, for me, that's a fascinating point you raise. For me, there are 3 ways I can learn. I can learn by thinking on my own, creatively. Secondly, I can learn from my mistakes. And thirdly, I can learn from your mistakes.
Right.
Now, learning from my mistakes is very painful.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, I can learn from watching you make your mistakes, but what's best is if I can really get my brain into gear and think creatively, think rationally, and learn that way. But you're absolutely right. I learn from observing you make mistakes, And then to be honest with you, the most difficult way for me to learn is by learning from mistakes that I make.
Yeah.
But you see, that doesn't change the fact that the rational mind that you and I have is such an amazingly intricate computer, if you will. It demands an intelligent mind. Cape Canaveral, the first moonshot was being made. And two scientists who worked for NASA, one was a believer in God and the other was an atheist or agnostic, stood beside each other. And they're watching this spaceship take off from Cape Canaveral, Cape Kennedy, to go to the moon. And the believer turns to the unbeliever and says, "Isn't it amazing the way this rocket ship by accident is going to get to the moon?" And the agnostic scientist says, "What do you mean by accident? We have invested millions of man-hours into putting this rocket together." And the believing scientist turns to the unbelieving scientist and says, "Really? Well, then how much more unlikely is it that this incredible universe that you and I could never put together, regardless of how many millions of man-hours we put into it, is a result of chance?" See, order and design, especially complex order and design, like a rocket ship, demands an intelligent mind. That's the only reason it made it from Cape Canaveral to the moon. Well, the universe is far more complex than a rocket ship. If I demand that the only reason the rocket ship makes it to the moon is because of all the intelligent design, but then I turn around and say, but this rational mind and this universe is just the result of chance, it's pretty implausible, isn't it?
I don't know.
Oh, I think you do know.
I don't.
Well, how can you possibly believe that complex order and design comes about by chance?
Well, I'm probably gonna sound like an idiot, but anyways, it's okay. I'm actually taking a non-majors astronomy class, and I don't know. It's just a lot of the stuff that they say in there. I mean, they have theories and equations and stuff like that, like the Big Bang and like the age of stars and the universe, and I don't know. I mean, it just seems like, I guess for people like me, like that's an answer, and like there's something physical that I can touch and read and stuff like that. But with what you believe in, or most people, I don't know. The only thing I can touch is a Bible, and I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay, well, I don't believe that God exists because the Bible says so.
No, I know.
One of the reasons I believe God exists is because of the Big Bang. I mean, the guy who discovered the Big Bang, Arno Penzias, he got a Nobel Prize for it in 1963. And Arno Penzias, after discovering the Big Bang, says, this is exactly what I would have concluded if I just had the Pentateuch, Genesis through Deuteronomy. Why? The Big Bang shows the universe is not eternal. There's a beginning. Guess what? Everything that has a beginning has a cause. You never have something have a beginning without having a cause. And it was the Big Bang that drove Albert Einstein out of pantheism, which is a belief that everything's, God, to theism, that there is a creator. Because you see, the Big Bang is a statement. The universe is not eternal. The universe is about 15 billion years old. But it clearly has a beginning, so therefore there's got to be a cause. And it's most reasonable to believe there's an uncaused cause that caused the Big Bang. Johann Kepler, the father of modern astronomy, as he peers out into the stars at night, exclaims, "Oh God, I am thinking your thoughts after you." See, sir, there's no contradiction between science and belief in God. Where the contradiction comes in is between the philosophy of science that says, behind the Big Bang, behind the order of your amazing body, there's no intelligent mind, there's just chance and fate. Obviously, that contradicts belief in God. But remember, that's a philosophy. That's not hard science. You can't scientifically prove that evolution just comes out of chance and fate. You can give evidence that evolution is true. And I believe that. I follow that evidence. But when it comes to, is there an intelligent mind behind the process or not? That's not science. That's philosophy. That's theology. That's having to think reasonably.